This audio recording was captured in 1927 on the shore of Black Lake, a small, isolated body of water hidden deep within the Carpathian Mountains. What you're hearing is not the call of a bird, nor the howl of the wind through the pines. It is not music, not human speech, not any sound that should logically exist. And yet, those who were there, those who heard it, reported the same thing: a tremor deep in the bones, a chill that slithered along the spine, and the unmistakable sensation that reality itself was bending. The discovery of this phenomenon was credited to Elena Popescu, a 28-year-old librarian. Elena had always been ordinary in the quietest, most predictable ways. She rose at dawn, tended the village library, catalogued books, and walked home along the forest path, often with a notebook tucked under her arm. She was rational, meticulous, and entirely unconvinced of the superstitions that others held dear. But in a single night, everything changed. The first time Elena heard the sound, she was sitting alone on the wooden pier, a primitive recording device balanced at the water's edge. Mist rose from the lake, curling around her boots, cold and damp, filling her nose with the pungent scent of decaying leaves and algae. She pressed the red button, hoping to capture the nocturnal calls of waterfowl, her mind entirely grounded in science. Then it began. A melody, impossibly intricate and haunting, rose from the darkness. It was layered and alive, as if sung by a chorus of voices from somewhere far beneath the surface of reality itself. It carried a vibration that made her teeth ache, as if her very bones were resonating in sympathy. Elena froze, her hands trembling around the recorder. At first, she thought it must be a trick of the wind. But when the recording played back the next morning, the melody was undeniable, an arrangement of tones no instrument on earth could produce. By the end of the week, neighbors were whispering about changes. Elena's eyes, once a soft chestnut, reflected a strange, opalescent white in the dark. Her hair seemed to catch and hold light in an unnatural way. And the melody returned, even when the recorder was off. Even when Elena left the pier and returned home, the air seemed to hum softly, as if the song had followed her. Black Lake's village was small, nestled in a valley cradled by mountains whose peaks were perpetually shrouded in mist. The interwar period had brought some modern conveniences. Telegraph lines, a few electric lamps flickering into existence at dusk, and travelers with bicycles and cameras. But the villagers were steeped in superstition. They spoke of spirits that lingered at dawn, of omens in the mist, of creatures that could steal a person's shadow if they strayed too far from the hearth. Elena, with her books and her meticulous cataloging, seemed like a figure from another world. She was a bridge between the modern and the old, reading German poetry, French philosophy, and the occasional medical journal, yet always courteous to villagers' fears and rituals. Before the events at the lake, her life was simple, quiet, and entirely predictable. She would rise at dawn, tend the library, and stroll along the forest paths in the evening, noting birds and the first frost of the season. The arrival of electricity to the outer homes had been met with awe and some fear. Shadows in lamplight appeared to stretch and shift unnaturally, as if the darkness itself resented being illuminated. When Elena first heard the melody at Black Lake, she would have dismissed it as a trick of nature, if only her rational mind had been enough to resist the visceral terror of the sound. October had brought an early frost, frosting the leaves along the shoreline with a crystalline shimmer. The lake was a black mirror, reflecting the moon with uncanny clarity. Elena carried her recording device, a bulky cylinder with wires and a hand-cranked motor, to the old wooden pier. The planks creaked under her boot. Fog rolled over the water in thick sheets, curling like the fingers of a phantom. She set the recorder down and waited, listening to the familiar sounds of the night. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl, the skittering of small mammals in the brush. Then came the first note, high, pure, and immediately impossible. It was not a bird, nor wind, nor any sound she had ever catalogued. It resonated in a way that seemed to echo inside her skull, vibrating through her teeth, her sternum, her spine. For hours, she sat frozen, pencil in hand, jotting frantic notes while the melody continued. It ebbed and flowed, sometimes distant, sometimes as if originating inside her own chest. When she returned to the village, the sound lingered in her ears like a phantom limb. Neighbors noticed that she was quieter than usual, eyes wide with a kind of fevered awe. The next day, when she played the recording back for herself, she realized the impossible. The melody was present even in silence. The days following Elena's first encounter with the melody were marked by subtle but undeniable changes. At first, it was only the small things. A faint glow in her hair at night, almost like moonlight trapped in individual strands, or the way her eyes caught and reflected light, revealing shades of opalescent white no one had ever seen. Villagers whispered in hushed tones, fearful yet captivated. Some claimed they had seen her walking along the forest paths, her shadow stretching unnaturally long, twisting as though it had a life of its own. Elena herself seemed unaware at first, or perhaps she was too entranced to notice. She spent hours by the lake, notebook in hand, scribbling symbols and musical notations that did not match any known system. Her handwriting, precise and rational before, became wild and flowing, almost alive, as if the melody she had discovered was translating itself onto the page. Neighbors soon reported strange occurrences inside her home. Lamps flickered without reason. Books would fall from shelves, open to passages Elena had never studied. One evening, a local baker swore he saw her shadow detach from her body as she walked past his window, hovering for a brief moment before snapping back into place. By the end of the month, Elena's physical transformation became impossible to ignore. Her once chestnut hair now emitted a soft, silvery glow under the moonlight. Her eyes, reflecting the lake's black depths, sometimes seemed to swirl with internal movement, like tiny storms. Late at night, villagers reported hearing Elena speaking in languages she had never learned. Slovak, Hungarian, German, and words that sounded almost archaic, strung together in phrases that made no conventional sense. Some nights, she would sing, her voice layering over itself in impossible harmonies, creating echoes that seemed to ripple across the village. Animals reacted too. Dogs would howl in response, birds would flee in agitation, and even livestock would shiver in place, ears pricked toward the unseen source. Time itself seemed to distort near her. Those who lingered in her presence reported clocks running too fast or too slow, shadows twisting unnaturally, and the air itself feeling heavier or lighter at random. Dogs whimpered in corners, cats hissed at unseen threats, and the very wind would shift direction inexplicably whenever she walked by. The villagers were torn between reverence and terror. Elderly women whispered that she had become a child of the lake, chosen by spirits older than memory. Some men, practical and skeptical, dismissed her abilities as coincidence or trickery, but even they could not deny the recordings of her voice that contained tones and harmonies impossible for the human voice to produce. One man who attempted to replicate the melody on a violin broke the instrument within moments, strings snapping as though resisting the music. Elena herself seemed almost unaware of her growing power. She would walk along the lake at dawn, notebook in hand, quietly scribbling notations and words she claimed were answers the melody had given her. Sometimes she spoke to the water directly, murmuring phrases so low that only she could hear, and yet the ripples of the lake would respond, twisting and curling unnaturally around her reflection. By December, the strange events surrounding Elena Popescu had grown too pronounced to remain a local curiosity. Word of the ghost song spread beyond the village, carried by travelers, journalists, and nervous government clerks eager to investigate the mysterious reports from the Carpathians. Skeptics, scientists, and clergy arrived in waves, each convinced they could explain, or contain, the phenomena. Father Iancu, the village priest, brought holy water, candles, and prayer books, prepared for exorcism. Elena, however, was indifferent. When he approached the lake, chanting prayers, she merely gazed into the water, her voice rising in its impossible harmonies over his own. The candles flickered violently, their flames bending away as if repelled. The wind rose suddenly, carrying the layered melody across the lake. Father Iancu fell to his knees, overwhelmed by an authority far beyond his understanding. Next came Professor Klaus Richter, a physicist from Vienna, sent by an academic society intrigued by rumors of auditory phenomena and unusual light emissions. He arrived with recording devices, meters, and notebooks, intent on capturing evidence for science. At first, his equipment seemed to function normally, but as soon as Elena began her nightly ritual at the lake, all instruments failed. Thermometers plummeted or soared erratically, microphones emitted feedback that shattered glass, and photographic plates produced only blurred, ghostly images that did not match reality. Richter noted in his diary, "The phenomena resist observation. It is as though reality itself refuses to be measured here. I have never encountered anything remotely like this." Other authorities attempted to intervene: police officers, bureaucrats, even a traveling journalist with a motion picture camera, but all were met with inexplicable interference. Shadows twisted unnaturally, recordings played melodies the human voice could not produce, and light bent as though refracted by invisible prisms. Some claimed that when they tried to touch Elena, her form felt less substantial than air, almost fluid, and yet completely present. It became clear that Elena Popescu was beyond the reach of both faith and science. It was on a bitter winter night, when the snow covered the mountains and the lake mirrored the moon with perfect clarity, that the crescendo occurred. A low hum emanated from the water, growing into harmonics impossible for any human throat or instrument. The lake's surface shimmered unnaturally, reflecting the moonlight like liquid mercury. Shadows twisted, elongating across the snow and forest. Elena hovered above the wooden pier, her hair a shimmering halo of silver light. Her voice carried over the lake, folding upon itself, weaving a tapestry of sound that seemed to alter the very air. Observers felt the world bend around her. Gravity shifted, time dilated, and even the cold seemed to lose its bite. Mihai, a local villager, later recounted that he felt his feet leave the ground, his chest weightless, as Elena's form rose above the lake, singing, floating, and becoming one with the water itself. Then, suddenly, she was gone. The melody vanished. The shadows collapsed. Time snapped back to normal. The lake, once boiling and alive, returned to its mirror-like stillness, reflecting only the moon and stars. The morning after Elena's disappearance, Black Lake seemed altered. The snow-covered shore was silent, the trees unmoving, and the water perfectly still. Yet villagers who approached felt a strange weight in the air, a subtle vibration as if the lake itself remembered what had transpired. The melody clung to the forest, whispering in the rustling leaves, humming beneath the frozen surface, and echoing in the hearts of those who had witnessed it. Authorities' reports were inconclusive. Audio recordings contained fragments of impossible harmonics, layered with whispers no human mouth could produce. Visitors report still hearing the faint melody at midnight, drifting across the snow or rustling curtains. Shadows move where there should be none, and some swear they glimpse a faint glow over the pier, as though Elena were still present. No one knows what truly happened to her. Some theorists suggest she was taken by a force beyond Earth, an alien or interdimensional presence. Others believe she became one with the lake, transcending human limitations. A few argue it was a mass psychological event, magnified by superstition and fear. Yet none of these explanations fully account for the recordings, the physical alterations, or the eyewitness accounts. The village itself has never been the same. Travelers still trek through the snow and mist to the lake, hoping to glimpse what remains, to hear the faint melody, or to see the light in the water that heralds Elena's presence. And the photograph of that final night, her luminous form hovering above the dark water, continues to circulate online, haunting the